The San Diego Padres' slow start continues, dropping 3 out of 4 games against the Brewers, including a donut in total from the offense. What is going on with that offense? What is going on with Juan Soto? Do they really need Fernando Tatis Jr. to save it? Some pitcher regressions. Just a bad overall weekend, and we're going to talk about it. You know what you're listening to. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, April 17th. As always, I'm your host, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly I promise you, not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or at LO_Padres if the pop culture weird tweets don't float your boat. You can check out that where I live tweet the game sometimes. Also, check out the YouTube Locked On Padres on YouTube to see whatever fit I'm rocking. Nothing super special this time, but I got a nice little beanie hat. And you might have seen, for people who saw the show on Friday, I added a little Pac-Man in honor of Michael Wacha. Michael Wacha, if you know what I'm saying. Added that to the set. Thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On Padres your first listen every day. Free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is also brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming a GM in baseball? Well, Ultimate Baseball GM, it's definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up in your app store, Google Plays, whatever. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game. So go check that out. Today's episode, guys, we are talking about the San Diego Padres dropping 3 of 4 games to the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that longtime listeners may be aware that I hate the Brewers. And I've said a bunch of reasons why, but long story short, I hate that they are a very consistently good and solid team, and they refuse to spend any money to make their team better, consistently settling for a wild card or even second place, or in the case of last year, just trading away your best asset when you're in first place. That seems to be the Brewers' motif, but that certainly does not make them a bad team. Bad team is like your Cubs and your Reds, right? The Brewers are not a bad team, but even still, this was a pretty disgraceful weekend for the Padres offense especially, and it's starting to become a little bit more worrisome of a trend, and we're going to talk about that. But first, let's talk in detail about yesterday's game, which is what a lot of Padres Nation is going to be upset about. 1-0 loss in this one. Starting pitcher for the Brewers, Wade Miley. Now, I did joke on Twitter that it's pretty shameful that after a great Yu Darvish performance that you're getting absolutely ticed up by Wade Miley. But Wade Miley's not that bad of a pitcher. He's actually kind of like the perfect swing pitcher, to be honest with you. If you look at his ERA totals, especially the past few seasons, so far this year he's got a 2.45, especially after today, but 3.16, 3.37. I actually wrote about him and his 2021 season for justbaseball.com, which you guys can go check out. Well, this is an old piece, but go check out Just Baseball. I actually wrote about Luis Campusano recently over there. But like, he's been a decent pitcher as of late. So he's not terrible, not great. It's still shameful, though, that a Padres lineup that includes Juan Soto, Manny Machado, and Xander Bogaerts isn't able to muster a single run in this game. And the lone RBI in this game comes, if I'm not mistaken, was it the first inning? Let me check real quick. Yeah, it was the top of the second inning, actually. A sacrifice fly from Brian Anderson that allowed Garrett Mitchell to score, which was also the result of a balk from Yu Darvish. So that's what actually brought him to second place and got him closer, and then they ended up bringing him in. And that's unfortunate. And on the Padres side of things, I mean, 2 strikeouts in this game from Juan Soto. One of them was a little bit unlucky. A pitch that was called a little bit outside. Definitely wasn't a strike, or at least I should say probably wasn't a strike. I think Soto has earned the reputation of having incredible plate discipline. But let me tell you, a 172 batting average mark from a guy who is supposed to be getting $500 million or whatever, isn't what you like to see. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Soto in a little bit, but Manny Machado, 2 strikeouts in this game from him as well. Xander Bogaerts, no strikeouts, but only 1 for 4. Just not a lot going on here. Ha-Seong Kim goes 2 for 4, which was nice after a little bit of a slump for him recently with the offense. So nice to see him there. Austin Nola actually goes 1 for 3 with a walk, so that was kind of nice. And then Trent Grisham 0 for 4 with 3 Ks, just as everything was looking good for him. Where do I start here? Well, first of all, the last good news is that Yu Darvish was excellent in this game. 7 innings, 4 hits. He did walk 2, and he did give up a run, but he struck out 12. So his first great start of the year. Talked about it on previous shows that looks like it was a little bit of a delayed start for him. You know what I mean? Coming out of the gate a little bit weird. I called it the Mario Kart thing where you hold A too long when it's the 3-2-1 countdown, you kind of overheat and whatever. Looks like a similar trend with Darvish, the fact that they skipped over his start first go around and they had to wait a little bit before he came back in the rotation. But this start evidenced that this is what you can expect from Yu Darvish more often than not. So really love that. I feel like there's nothing to really talk about him with him at the moment. You know what I'm saying? Until he starts showing more of a trend of either looking like a Cy Young pitcher or if he looks like he's going to blow up, Darvish is just doing Darvish things, which is great for this Padres team. I think that some people will note that there was an unfortunate instance in the bottom of the ninth for this game. The Padres try to mount a comeback. They have the bases loaded. Juan Soto, again, another strike 3 call on this one. Or it wasn't against him. My apologies. A strike 3 call on Nelson Cruz for a pitch that was outside and away for sure. If you want to look at the replay and whatever. That was unfortunate on a full count, especially. It would have been first and second with Soto moving to second, with then to bring up Jay Cronenworth. But unfortunately becomes 1 out. Cronenworth strikes out. You get Ha-Seong Kim to get on base. But then, unfortunately, it just isn't enough. Austin Nola gets on base as well. But bases loaded. Grisham watches a strike 3 call. For the record, I still think that Trent Grisham has shown a lot of improvement this year. He's been a lot more aggressive at the plate. He's been slugging the ball for sure, as we saw in game 1 of this series when he hit the game-tying home run. But 200, 304, 425 slash line, not the best in the world, but I do like that his improved approach at the plate, being a lot more aggressive, has resulted in some hits. So he's been still pretty good, and especially considering that, the 5 home runs on the year. Or I'm sorry, is it 5 home runs? No, it's 5 RBIs on the year. My mistake. Jeez, I was about to say. 3 home runs on the year with the defense. I do believe that we can expect a little bit more of an average offensive season from Trent Grisham with the defense. So I'm not freaking out about him. But it's the rest of the team. I mean, Juan Soto. Holy dear Lord Almighty. I've been getting a lot of questions about this guy. And for good reason. I mean, he's still one of the all-time, or in the entire league, one of the best on-base threats. He still has more walks than strikeouts this year. But he has struck out a decent amount, and he's just not driving guys in. And this Padres team in general, currently, if you look at just overall splits, leaderboards, and whatnot, through the early going, which granted is early, if you want to look at batting average in terms of runners and scoring position, the Padres are second to last among all qualified teams in baseball with a 209 average. That means that a team like the Detroit Tigers has been better than them. The only team worse than them has been the Kansas City Royals. Granted, this is not the be-all and end-all, but you want to look at WRC Plus, which tells you everything from walks and just overall, maybe you're getting unlucky. The Padres are 25th in the league in WRC Plus with runners in scoring position. So one interesting note is that like the New York Mets, who've been playing a little bit better lately, their average is also like the 3rd worst in the league, but their WRC Plus mark is at 16. So much better than the Padres. So this isn't, they're not drawing walks. They're not getting enough. They're getting some sac flies every now and then, and they've hit some home runs from Bogarts and Grisham with guys on base, but with runners in scoring position, they have been dreadful this year. Now, I will say that 25th and 29th mark for batting average in WRC Plus, that presents actually a little bit of a positive. And hear me out here. I just have trouble believing that with this team, you're going to be worse with driving runners in than teams like the, Pittsburgh Pirates, who are currently 19th in WRC Plus with runners in scoring position. The Arizona Diamondbacks, the San Francisco Giants have actually low-key been pretty clutch this year so far, despite having some really rough getting walked off, I think 2 days in a row by the Tigers. They've been better, but like the Oakland A's have been better with runners in scoring position. Seriously, there's some usual culprits. All right, the Twins are pretty good. The Rays, the Rangers have a good offense. Dodgers, obviously, as always, but the Padres have been dreadful with runners in scoring position. There's no other way to really kind of go about it. And yesterday was kind of the mea culpa of that. I believe they went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts with runners in scoring position yesterday, around that amount. So it was really rough. And it stinks because some of the other things on this team have leveled out a little bit. Bullpen has been a little bit sharper, although Nabil Krismat might be getting demoted at this point. But with that, defense has been a little bit sharper lately. just overall, it's just not happening. And I think the biggest culprits for that are Manny Machado and Juan Soto. Machado has slowly been getting it going. He hit his first home run in this series, first game of the series. He had a hit in every game, actually. Not multiple hits, but he did have a hit in every game, and he was able to draw one walk in the second game. But he's just, slow start for him for sure. On the season, his slash line is 254, 294. That's the big thing here, with a 394 slugging. Still way too early, but that's kind of the story so far, is that two of the big MVP superstars in this lineup have just not been producing. And at times, you've gotten production out of guys like Ha-Seong Kim and guys like Grisham, guys like Nelson Cruz. His WRC plus is like 124 right now. Nelson Cruz has been a pretty good for what he's been tagged for. You know what I mean? Obviously, early season, and his numbers might be a little bit inflated by that one game when he had 6 RBIs against the Braves. But even still, the fact that he has had the big game more so than some of the other guys on the team has been really rough. So that's really unfortunate. And again, as tempting as it would be to say that was a bad strike 3 call on Nelson Cruz in that 9th inning, and that they were robbed of that, you can't drop a donut for the entire game against Wade Miley and then complain that against Devin Williams, one of the premier closers in baseball. I think that maybe only Josh Hader and Edwin Diaz, gone, but he'll be back next year. But, aside from those guys, like probably the premier closer in baseball. So, look, it's really rough right now. It stinks, but hopefully it gets better. But before we recap the rest of this series and some other things that happened, particularly on the pitching side of things, let me talk to you guys about something very important. Because in this world, you need entertainment. You need to you need to have your dreams fulfilled. And let me tell you, folks. Let me tell you. Ultimate Baseball GM can fulfill your dreams. Because you know what? I bet you have dreams of being a GM. Hey, every now and then I have dreams. I watched Moneyball. You think that I see, Brad Pitt eating that Twinkie and saying things like Garcia, but we'll give you him 200K and all that. You don't think that makes me fantasize about being a GM? Well, guess what? Ultimate Pro Baseball GM helps you do that. It's really fantastic, guys. You have to hire the right coaches and staff. You have to manage difficult personalities. You have to manage free agency spending. Are you going to get the top free agent? You got to reflect your ballparks, your training, everything. Like, you got to manage the whole thing. So it's Ultimate Baseball Pro Baseball GM and owner, dare I say. You're doing everything. It's really fantastic, guys. You should go check it out. And because you guys are listening to the Locked On Padres podcast, you listeners get a free 100% boost to your franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game's store. I knew I was going to mess up at some point doing this ad read. I just knew it. Just like I knew the Padres weren't going to score with runners in position. You know what I mean? Just absolutely terrible. But anyway, to download the game, guys, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, and look it up on the App Store. Remember, that is probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. And we're back, everybody, here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Remember, first listen every day, free and available on all platforms. Let's talk about the rest of this series. I'm not going to do like a game-by-game full sort of recap. I'm actually going to save the one good game of this series for last to give everybody some happiness. But first game of this series, I only was able to do a Locked On video. I actually recorded with, I knocked Tatis over. Foreshadowing, bad omen. Hopefully not. I recorded with Chuck Weinberg for Friday's episode, and we had done that before the first game. So I did not actually get to do a recap other than my little Locked On video, in which they lost 4-3. It was a close game. It was an unfortunate game that they were unable to win in this one. And it stinks because, as I alluded to earlier, Trent Grisham came up huge with a bottom of the 8th 2-run home run to tie it. And Colin Ray was the one for the Brewers that kind of sliced up the team in general. But thankfully, they were able to hit Mr. Bush of the Brewers. But in this game, Nick Martinez, not terrible. Kind of the peak Nick Martinez start. He only allows 5 hits, does give up 3 earned runs, does walk 3, does strike out 2, but he only let up 3 runs, right? So he wasn't fantastic. ERA is still at 5.6 on the season. WHIP is a little bit high at 1.42, but that's kind of what you can expect from him. And again, for a 5 starter, for a 6 starter, depending on how the Padres go about things. I'm not all that concerned about Martinez, although I would much rather have him in the bullpen, because I think that he's pretty lethal there, especially with that changeup that he can really used to just put away hitters and especially limit hard contact for a defense that, in theory, the infield defense should be pretty good to help out with that. So nothing too bad from him in this game. It was, the 3 runs were given up by him, but unfortunately, Padres offense just couldn't really hit Colin Ray all that well in this game. You have the Rowdy Tellez home run, who kind of killed us in the series. You had the Mike Brazeau home run, but Trent Grisham and Manny Machado are kind of the 2 players that kept in it. Told you, alluded to this earlier, Manny Machado's first home run of the year. It's just funny, like, how one thing that you should know is some of these numbers look bad for a lot of the players, with Machado, with Soto especially, but just like 2 good games, 2 multi-hit games, and all of a sudden they're on base, they're slugging, will be through the roof again. You know what I'm saying? But I think that with Machado, it's just been such a long time of excellence that I'm just not all that worried. And Machado can sometimes be the victim of poor luck, especially considering he's not the fastest player in the world. He does hit the ball a decent amount of times on the ground. His first year with the Padres, actually, he grounded into, I think, like 25 double plays, which was like the league, the most in the league, I'm not mistaken. So his first season with the Padres, that was. So he's prone to starting off a little bit slow. I know we wish that it was Manny from 2022 who started off on fire and should have won the MVP, like he was good throughout. But I'm not overly worried. It is just nice to see that his first home run is out of the way. So that was really cool. But in this game, zombie runner ends up getting us. I'm not going to go through the discourse over whether or not I hate or the zombie rule is the worst thing ever. My opinion is, you don't like it, you should have won the game beforehand. You're home. You had a chance. Devin Williams came in, sliced up the team's lineup, and unfortunately they just couldn't get it done in that last inning. And in that last inning, and I got to rant about this, Luis Campusano brought in to pinch hit, which the decision in a vacuum makes sense, but he strikes out swing on 3 pitches. One of them he fouls off. He hit it pretty hard, but he fouled it off. I wrote recently over at Just Baseball about whether or not the Padres hate Luis Campusano. Probably going to talk about that a little bit more on tomorrow's episode. I think we're going to save that. Or I should say Wednesday's episode. We're going to save it for. Tomorrow's episode is probably going to be with my buddy Rylan Stiles, our weekly catch-up. Going to save that for Wednesday, talking about my article as well. With Campusano, the way they've used him. Some news on him. The Padres actually called up another catcher who I am blanking on the name of. So I will need that really quickly. But they called up a catcher because reportedly Luis Campusano, while warming up Nick Martinez on Thursday's game, kind of jammed his thumb, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check here. Yeah, he jammed his left thumb, according to Kevin Acee, Thursday while warming up Nick Martinez between innings, which is just like the epitome of the Luis Campusano not getting a chance. It's like, yeah, go warm up the pitcher, though. But you know what I mean? Go warm up the pitcher, but we're still not going to let you start. And that was a shame. But then he ends up starting in, Friday's game, in which the Padres get absolutely blown out. We're going to talk about that in a second. And he hits a home run in that game. So it's weird that the Padres were like, wait. He couldn't play because he jammed his thumb. But then we let him play the next game, and then he's going to miss 2 straight because of his thumb injury. And in that game that he allegedly played, they said something about adrenaline. Maybe it was keeping him going. He actually hits a home run. So again, I still don't know what they're doing with him, but we'll save the rest of my thoughts for Wednesday, unless you want to go read the article, because I actually had some different thoughts than you might be used to from me, maybe, on this subject. So go check that out at justbaseball.com. Does Luis Campusano? Is he hated by the San Diego Padres? But in terms of the rest of this game, look, I hate that they put the Campusano keeps getting put in these poor situations after inconsistent playing time, but hey, it happens. They weren't able to win this one. It stinks. Moving on. Let's talk about that blowout on Friday. Or I'm sorry, on Friday. Hold on. Yes. Wait. Am I stupid? Yes, on Friday. I ordered some empanadas after this one. The Padres lose 11-2 in this one. I had to order some sadness empanadas, let me tell you. Ooh, wow. 11-2 in this game. Eric Lauer gets his revenge against the Padres. He's actually pitched quite well against them over the course of his career. 6 innings, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 5 Ks on just 5 hits. The Padres, this was less of an offense thing. Yes, they got wiped out, and yes, their offense wasn't good. Eric Lauer kind of diced them up. But it was like 5-0 by the end of the first inning because of Waka. Michael Wacha in this game, he goes 4.1 innings, giving up 7 earned runs on 11 hits, 1 walk and 3 Ks, raising his ERA that was at a very good 3 to a low 6. Look, first of all, my condolences to everybody that picked up Michael Wacha in fantasy baseball, because you were like, oh, the Brewers, they're not always a great offense. Let me pick him up. He's been looking good. I would have told you myself not to do that. I didn't get a chance to. Look, this is what's going to happen for Michael Wacha. He is not that good. I know he broke, or at least tied, his career record of strikeouts, but in the previous start, but this is just not what he's going to be in totality. I still like him as a pitcher. I think that he has times where his stuff looks awesome. And considering that the Padres have the Snell, Darvish, and Musgrove, you don't need too much from him. But even still, this was a little bit unfortunate, right? It was really bad, and he looked terrible. I mean, he was leaving pitches out in the middle of the plate. They were all hanging, getting taken absolutely out of the park. Some home runs from Rowdy Tellez again in this game. Another Padres killer. Just really, really, really rough in this game from the Brewers. Just absolutely shellacking the Padres. He didn't give up the home run to Rowdy Tellez, I should say. Or did he? Yes, he did. Top of the 5th. Was that off of him? Yes. All right, so he gave up 1 home run to Rowdy Tellez, and then Rowdy Tellez hit another one. Again, Padres killer for some reason, Rowdy Tellez. Luke Voit also gets an RBI single in this game. They were close to throwing him out at the plate, but unfortunately he was safe, and then he did the whole chest hair thing that I kind of miss, admittedly. It was really nice seeing that from him, but just a really dreadful start. Again, Wacha, he got a little bit lucky last year. His expected ERA was a full run lower. And I don't like going always by expected stats, because expected stats last year would have pegged Alex Cobb to be the best pitcher in baseball, and this year he has been quite middling in a lot of ways. So he's a fine pitcher. It can show you when someone's getting a little bit unlucky, but that doesn't mean that they're good. Because at some point, you gave up the runs. You know what I mean? At some point, that matters. But with Wacha's run differential between expected last year and in reality being a full run difference, I'm phrasing this weird, being a full run difference is expected ERA and regular ERA, that's a lot, a full run difference, right? So this is kind of to be expected from Wacha, to be honest with you. A giant regression to the mean. I didn't think it would happen necessarily against the Brewers. I thought he might give up 3, maybe like have a Nick Martinez-esque start. But he's going to have games like this, and he's going to have games like when he just absolutely killed the Braves, right? Like, he's going to have good moments for sure. But it does stink that he was unable to, be really super consistent for a little bit longer, maybe, against this Brewers team that I loathe. So yeah, and Luis Campusano hits a home run in this game, which was kind of the only saving grace, if I'm not mistaken. Who else got the RBI? And then Rougned Odor hit a single to score Xander Bogaerts. Again, Bogaerts has been phenomenal to start. Better than maybe I even expected. I thought he might start off a little bit slow. He's just been friggin' excellent. He's been the MVP of the team so far as I'm concerned. But yeah, 11-2 loss. Really rough. But before we end this podcast on a little bit of a positive note, because that's what I want to do for y'all, because that's what I do when it's a bit of a rough series, just want to talk really quickly about a fantastic app. It's called So Rare, guys. Oh, yeah. First of all, that name is awesome. Let me tell you. It's a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners and officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. That's right, all 30. It's kind of like fantasy baseball combined with trading cards. In a lot of ways, it's really, really cool. And unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with other card players against global opponents to win epic rewards. And let me tell you, look, So Rare recently partnered with a familiar face, Mr. Juan Soto, to serve as brand ambassadors. They're featured in So Rare's current brand campaign and will engage with the So Rare community throughout the year at MLB events. So that's really cool, guys. It's really cool. They happen twice weekly and span a 3 to 4 day cycle. The games in So Rare, I mean, at the end of game weeks, So Rare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which include scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Maybe you'll meet Juan Soto and you can tell him to raise that batting average. Damn. But seriously, go check that out, guys. It's really, really cool. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's So Rare, SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards. Set your lineup. Start competing today. Earn epic rewards, guys. Again, sorare.com. /lockdown to start playing today. And we're back, everybody, here on this podcast. We are winding things down because we got to end it on a high note. The Padres' offense was bad. Both Michael Wacha, Michael Wacha and what's his face, Nick Martinez left a little bit to be desired. It's been dreadful. But thankfully, Saturday's game was like kind of a little bit of a nice, just a chilled, okay, there's the San Diego Padres. There's the team that we're spending season tickets on and $400 million on. In this game, got a whole lot of runs. 10-3, bouncing back in full against not necessarily the starter that you'd expect the Padres to bounce back against. So they weren't able to hit Colin Ray. They weren't able to hit Wade Miley. But, whoa! Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, and Eric Lauer. But they were able to hit one of their top 3 starters, Mr. Freddie Peralta, who had a 0.75 ERA coming into the game. They hit him nice and good in this one. 5 innings, giving up 5 earned runs on 9 hits, 1 walk, 5 Ks for Mr. Peralta. He's been really good so far, and he's a very good pitcher when healthy. So I think that out of all of these games, it is peak baseball. This is peak baseball. You lose Colin Ray, Eric Lauer, and Wade Miley, but then you beat Freddie Peralta. It is peak baseball that you can only help but laugh at just a little bit, guys. But in this game, like I said, Padres scored a bunch of runs. Today belongs to Mr. Jake Cronenworth. Hits 2 home runs in this game, one being a 2-run home run that took the score to 5-3. And then later on, Nelson Cruz hits a sac fly. Then after that, in the bottom of the 7th, Cronenworth hits another home run. Hopefully that gets him going. He's been below average offensively this year. And at first base, which is a position that you're usually used to getting a whole lot of offense out of, we're hoping to get a little bit more out of him. I am worried that the Cronenworth of last year is just that this is just who he is as a player. A good utility player. He could hit for a decent amount of power, maybe even smack 20 homers if things go right. And he can play multiple positions. But his overall power output, he's not going to slap the ball around as much as you would like. I am a little bit worried about Cronenworth in terms of that. But hopefully this gets him going. He didn't do well in yesterday's game. He had the strikeouts. He had one in the bottom of the 9th. But overall, I hope it gets him going. I am just very skeptical. Grisham, I think, his stock is up. I think that his stock is showing that he can be an average offensive player in totality with really good defense, which is what this team needs. But with Cronenworth, I don't think he's going to be below average, right? I don't think he's going to... His current WRC plus right now is... Actually, it looks like it's 128. So that just shows you how much it boosted. But before this game, if I'm not mistaken, it was sitting at an 84. Before this game, in which he hit 2 home runs. So he's got 128 right now. But overall, before, it was like below that. I don't think it's going to be below, but I think 110 is what you might get out of Mr. Cronenworth, which good defense, which is fine for $11 million a year. Like, that's fine, especially depending on how things, play out, depending on if the Padres bring in a first baseman who can maybe add a little bit more power, then you move Cronenworth to second. So many things for the future. That's fine. But I don't think I've seen anything different yet to suggest that he is going to be what we saw in 2021 and 2020. That's just me. I could be dead wrong on this, but look, he's still a quality player. He doesn't whiff on pitches that much, and he makes contact. Problem is that the contact isn't always the best in the world, right? So we'll have to see, but still, hopefully this keeps him going. We'd love to see that. And also, in this game, we get just to just like put the knife and twist it a little bit more on these damn Brewers. Cronenworth also gets another RBI later on with a walk with the bases loaded, as well as Nelson Cruz, who drew a walk in this game. Really, really cool. Manny Machado gets an RBI in this one as well. Just Nelson Cruz gets an RBI in this game as well. Nelson Cruz has just been a hit king. In a lot of ways. I think is he the first on the team in batting average? Because he's actually been playing a lot more. I've noticed because of the fact that Matt Carpenter hasn't been as great, really high walk rate, but he's been struggling to hit. He started off hot, and he is able to draw a walk every now and then, but he is hitting below that 200 Mendoza line, which isn't great. Not super. One thing about Carpenter is it looks like he's having trouble with high heat. It looks like if you don't throw him some hanging stuff or some off-speed stuff, that he struggles on that. He's still drawing walks. Again, I'm not freaking out about Matt Carpenter, but it is one of the things that I've seen so far. So hopefully he can amend that just a little bit. And Nelson Cruz has barely seen all that many pitches, but he's hitting 333 right now, Like, Nelson Cruz just refuses to take a walk, but he also refuses to strike out and not put the ball in play at the minimum. So he's hitting 333. That should go down a little bit because he's not too much of a speedster, and he's never been a guy that's going to hit for a super high average. Not that he's a low average guy. His lifetime average, if I'm not mistaken, let me check here. Is it 2.4? No, it's 275. Which is good. That's really solid, but he's not like a supreme batting average guy, and he's super old, and he's not going to outrun stuff, so I would expect that to go down just a little bit. His BABIP is currently 370, so yeah, that'll go down a little bit, but hopefully it is counterbalanced by him drawing a little bit more walks, which is what I would like to see. He hasn't walked all that much, but 149 WRC plus for the Padres right now. He's been splendid. $1 million for a 75-year-old Cruz, I'll take it. What he's been doing so far is great, and I think with the return of Fernando Tatis Jr., it gets even more exciting because then it's like, all right, Cruz you can use against certain lineups, Carpenter you can use in certain lineups, and I like the mix and match. I do trust Bob Melvin. I don't like the whole lackluster playing time of Luis Campusano, but I do trust him when it comes to that. I do like that we'll be able to mix and match there. That's really exciting, and Jose Azocar being a nice defensive bench player I think is good as well. So, I like that. I still like what's going on with Cruz and Carpenter overall. Even if it's not always shown. But hey, 3 RBIs from him, 6 from Mr. Cronenworth. Very cool stuff. And that's basically the series, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I should have mentioned, Mr. Waka Waka did not pitch very well in this game, but he didn't kill them. Just did not pitch very well. It was a great bullpen game. Again, one positive thing. Hold on, how do I phrase this? One of the bad trends for the Padres to start the season, I'd say there was 2. I'd say it was bad defense and really bad bullpen. It looks like those 2 things have amended themselves a little, and also hitting with runners in scoring position. So 2 of the 3 have been amended a little bit, and I think that's to be expected. Steven Wilson in this game, low key, 0.93 ERA in this game. He actually gets tagged with the win. And Brent Honeywell, who I'm so happy for, again, former superstar prospect, gets drafted really high, and then just gets just destroyed by injuries. I am really so happy for the guy. I would say that if I saw him, being like, this is awesome. He goes an inning, doesn't give up any runs, strikes out 2. He's got a 1.93 ERA on the season. I love that he's remaking himself seemingly as a reliever, a signing that kind of was like an afterthought. This offseason has been really good for the Padres so far. Luis Garcia goes a scoreless inning. He needs to be a little bit better for sure. He's got a 5.8. I think he will get better. And then Tim Hill, who has a high whip this year, but hasn't given up the runs, but I think that's going to happen. He's been walking a lot of batters, not getting as many swings and misses as he used to. And Domingo Tapia appears in this game, but he just got optioned back to AAA, unfortunately. Hate to see the guy go, but it happens. Let me see real quick if I can pull up who was the catcher that we brought up really quickly. What is his name? Brett Sullivan was brought up. My apologies to Mr. Sullivan. He was brought up, so Domingo Tapia got sent down. So I also, by the time this podcast comes out, it's totally possible that we get an announcement that Luis Campusano is heading to the IL. We'll see. I hope he avoids it, and I hope this was just more of a precautionary call-up, but that still stinks that it does. I would have been a lot more enraged on today's show if I got in here and saw that you put him out there to pinch hit with the game on the line, and he missed, unfortunately. Then you finally start him the next day. He hits a home run, and then you sit him for 2 straight. I would have been livid if he hits a home run and you sit him for 2 straight. I would have been livid. But it looks like there might have at least been some justification, even if it is a little weird, that whole thing. But yeah, guys, that's basically it. With Seth Lugo, I will say, while he wasn't all that fantastic in this game, like I said, he gives up 3 earned runs in this one on 8 hits. He only goes 3 2/3. That was probably the worst part of it, but still rocking a 2.7 ERA. Bullpen was great. Lugo, again, it's kind of, I know I'm repeating myself, but same thing with Martinez and Wacha. Just whatever you can kind of get out of these guys, if it can be positive, is great. But it was a little bit troubling. He didn't get the same swing and miss stuff as he was in the first 2 starts, but I don't know. I'm not freaking out. I think Wacha's start was truly horrible. I think Lugo let this game kind of get away from him in a lot of ways, and thankfully the bullpen picked him up, but I don't know. I really I like what I've seen from him. Is there a Puerto Rican bias from my guy Seth Lugo? Maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm being a little bit easy on him for that. But I just think that overall, the fact that his first 2 starts were 6 and 7 innings for a guy who's trying to become a starting pitcher, I think it was still a positive sign. So hopefully he bounces back from this. And I think he's going to probably start against the The Diamondbacks is probably when he's scheduled to start next. So that should be a nice test, especially a team that loves getting on the bases and running around and being crazy. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But with that all being said, guys, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, at LO_Padres on Twitter as well. If you want the Twitter show account, Locked On Padres on YouTube. Feel free to leave comments, DM me if you think there's another character I should add to my little collection. We've got Pac-Man and Tatis. And yeah, don't worry. We're going to be talking about Tatis. We got to talk about that. We might even talk about tomorrow with Rylan. We'll have to see. That's going to be a lot of fun. But until that next time, guys, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies, take care.